The MX-5's success found a counterpoint almost immediately in the lukewarm reception and ailing sales figures that greeted the all-new wheel, and which emerged only a few months later, lumbered as it was by a higher price, lumpier looks and front-wheel drive. The first MX-5 was arguably the model's dynamic high point. Its successors were generally very good too, but they became progressively more powerful, bigger, heavier and a bit less exciting to drive. For 2016, Mazda created the fourth iteration of its special edition Icon model, which we drove around Iceland to announce its arrival, and coming in 2017 is the hardtop Mazda MX-5 F. Just as importantly, the car starts at less than £20,000, meaning that everyone currently considering a small hot hatch is in the ballpark. Mazda MX-5 design and styling. Throughout the development, a rigorous gram strategy was applied to ensure that the Roadster had no superfluous mass. Thus the all-new suspension, still consisting of front wishbones and rear multi-links, is 12 kilograms lighter thanks to its aluminium components. The engine frame is aluminium, as are the front wings and bumper reinforcements. The front cross member is high-tensile steel, a much higher proportion of which is used in the body, too. The rear cross member benefits from a more rigid truss structure, while suspension mounts have been reinforced all round. That presents the prospect of this car being a true sub-1-ton rear-drive open-top. Mazda quotes the 1,050 kilograms curb weight of the 1.5-liter car to EU standard, adding 75 kilograms for a driver and luggage, without being as stripped out as a Caterham or as overtly Spartan as a Lotus. Moreover, the weight is ideally distributed 50-50 front to back and the center of gravity is slightly lower than before. Mazda's seriousness about making this MX-5 fun to drive by adding lightness is welcome, and crucial when you consider that this is the first model to use electromechanical power steering. It's a compact dual-pinion setup located close to the front wheels for increased stiffness. It has a marginally quicker ratio than that of the previous car, while the front wheel's caster angle is increased for better resistance to understeer. The MX-5's engines and gearboxes have been made to measure. Despite being used elsewhere in Mazda's lineup, each is fettled for the MX-5. The rear differential weighs less, too, although it isn't a limited slip item in the 1.5-liter car tested, as does the 6-speed manual Skyactiv mount gearbox, which, having been made to emulate the MX-5's shift action in other applications, gets the starring role here with the simplified linkage for even less resistance. Mazda MX-5 interior. The dashboard architecture is similar to that of the Mazda 2, which is a good thing because the same natty design features and chunky, tactile switchgear work equally well here in the Roadster. Broader adults will find themselves in frequent contact with the center console, door trim and the sides of the skinny footwell, along with the floor pan bulge that denies you the option of folding your clutch leg away on motorways, a malaise of right-hand drive cars only. Moreover, despite the 20mm lower hip point, you sit a little higher than would seem optimal, and the steering wheel still doesn't adjust for reach. More fool the critics, though, because in an age that tends towards profligacy, the MX-5's cockpit-sized simplicity, once reconciled with, makes for a charming environment. Nowhere is this better encapsulated than in the manually operated roof. Made 3 kilograms lighter than before and requiring 30 pounds-foot less effort to close, the hood can be operated easily with one hand, even when moving. There's one spring-loaded clip to unfasten on the header rail, then a click somewhere in the housing behind you to confirm that it's safely stowed. It takes 4 or 5 seconds and, like pretty much everything else about the MX-5, puts everything larger, heavier and motor-driven to shame. The roof's tiny size means that the car continues to offer a modest-sized but usable boot. It's too small for golf clubs but is just big enough for 2 weekend away bags. Which seems to us exactly as it should be. There are 4 trim levels to choose from to deck your MX-5 out in: SE, SEL NEV, Sport NEV, and Icon. The entry-level SE model comes with air conditioning, LED headlights, and USB port and 16-inch alloy wheels. Upgrade to SEL nav and the MX-5 gains climate control, cruise control, a 7.0-inch touchscreen infotainment system with sat-nav, map update, DAB and Bluetooth, and 2 headrest speakers. The range-topping Sport Nav models come with keyless entry, adaptive headlights, rear parking sensors, a Bose sound system and a black leather upholstery, while the limited edition Icon MX-5s get Mazda's sole red details, graphics and trim, heated seats and body color interior trim. Mazda MX-5 Performance. The high-revving character of Mazda's 1.5-liter 4-pot is the reason why. Whereas the 2.0-liter car produces more mid-range torque relative to its peak power, the 1.5 needs to spin to allow the car to hit full stride. And it'll spin with not only freedom but also gathering force, right the way to the 7,500 revolutions per minute red line. And yet this MX-5 plays perfectly to arouse your excitement and seize your enthusiasm as a willing hostage. It hardly matters how fast you're going. The temptation starts with an unexpectedly roarty exhaust note, which sounds playful and offbeat even at idle. Blip the accelerator out of gear and the revs flare with promising urgency, then engage first and the MX-5's mechanically detailed and supremely positive shift quality announces itself. You're already having an absorbing and special driving experience, and you've yet to even turn a wheel. Gear shift aside, the car's controls are light and, being so obliging to control, fairly short-geared and revving cleanly from very low revs, it moves away from a standstill with a pleasing lack of inertia. Add some throttle and you'll pick up speed gradually at first, with limited mid-range torque on tap but with perfect response and a supremely linear delivery of it as the revs rise. Mazda MX-5 Ride and Handling. In reality, the MX-5's handling doesn't reward that judicious restraint in unqualified terms, in ways to which we'll come. But that shouldn't prevent this car from taking its place among the most vibrant, responsive and engaging sports cars available at any price. From the effortlessness of its hold on the road, through its fine balance and directional agility, to the zapping crispness of its every answer to a few extra degrees of steering angle or mid-corner dab of pedal, this car remains a true sporting great. In the drive, there's only just enough power to get the rear wheels to break traction with the accelerator during cornering, and only then at very high revs and by a fleeting few degrees of slip angle. It's a tenderness of adjustability that you rarely find in a modern car and is no less enjoyable for its subtlety than a 500 bhp Jaguar's handling is for its luridness. Disengage the ESP, a system that's neither sophisticated nor unobtrusive, unfortunately, and there are familiar ways to have fun with your cornering line, either with a trail brake or an exaggerated, throttle-off steering input. The MX-5 is sensitive to all. The electromechanical power steering could actually do with a larger contact patch through which to work, though. On 16-inch wheels, there's just a tad too much lightness about the steering wheel and the merest shortage of center feel and dead-ahead stability about the steering. Meanwhile, with the relatively high 50-profile sidewall, there's inevitable softness in the handling mix under high lateral loads, taking some precision away, if only on the very edge of adhesion. It's true that the ride could feel more fluent. Mazda couldn't get away with the gentleness of the original MX-5's damper tune today, and so the new car is more tautly checked when disturbed vertically. But it still feels like a natural athlete rather than a reconstructed one, and that it's absolutely vital to its appeal.